An awareness of what is best and most beautiful. In Rome, during May of 1974, Srila Prabhupada meets with Dr. Desmond James Bernard O'Grady, a noted Irish poet. My request to you is this: you are a poet. Just describe God. You are expert in describing, and therefore I ask you to kindly describe God in your occupation. Then your life will be successful. Mr. O'Grady: your edition of the Bhagavad Gita is very nice. Srila Prabhupada: it is the 5th edition in 2 years. Mr. O'Grady: in which country has the Hare Krishna movement been the most successful? Srila Prabhupada: everywhere. In Africa, America, Canada, Japan, China. But actually it has been most successful in America. Many Americans have taken to Krishna consciousness. Mr. O'Grady: what about here in Rome? Have you had problems with the police? Srila Prabhupada: we have problems everywhere. Police sometimes harass us, but usually they become tired and eventually don't do anything. Laughter. Mr. O'Grady: the system give up? That's marvelous. I feel very tired of the system myself. Something is wrong with the present state of affairs. Maybe you can give me some advice on how to beat the system. Prabhupada: you Irish people, you are never tired of fighting. Mr. O'Grady: no, with laughter. It's inside us. Prabhupada: actually, the fighting has been going on constantly. O'Grady: well, what do you suggest we do about it? I mean, is it morally correct for me to be sitting here? Prabhupada: as long as we remain illusioned by the bodily conception of life, thinking we are these bodies, one man thinking, I am Irish, another thinking, I am Italian, American, Indian, and so on. As long as this goes on, the fighting will go on. You cannot stop fighting between dogs and cats. Why do they fight? The dog simply thinks, I am a big dog, and the cat thinks, I am a big cat. In the same way, if we think I am an Irishman or I am an Englishman, then we are no better than the cats and the dogs. As long as people remain in a bodily conception of life, there will be fighting. O'Grady: what was Mahatma Gandhi fighting in the House of Commons? Prabhupada: that was another dogism. There is no difference. A dog thinks, I am a dog, because he has the body of a dog. If I am thinking that I am Indian because this body was born in Indian soil, then how am I different from the dog? The bodily conception of life is simply animalism. When we understand that we are not these bodies, but are spirit souls, there will be peace. There cannot be any peace otherwise. The Vedic literatures state that a person in the bodily concept of life is actually like a cow or an ass. People have to transcend this inferior conception of the self. How is that done? One who engages in the spiritual activities of unalloyed devotional service at once transcends the modes of material nature and is elevated to the spiritual platform. In our society, there are many Mexicans, Canadians, Indians, Jews, Muslims, but they no longer consider themselves Muslims, Christians, Jews, or whatever. They are all servants of Krishna. That is Brahman realization. O'Grady: that's giving it a name also. Prabhupada: yes, a name must be there, but although, for example, your name is different from that of another Irishman, you nonetheless all feel that you are Irish. One's name may be different, but that doesn't matter. The quality should be one. That is required. When we acquire Krishna quality, then, despite different names, there will be peace. The names of different people in a nation may be different, but all the people feel the same nationality. Varieties may exist, but if the quality is the same, that is oneness. Brahma Bhuta. One who is thus transcendentally situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman. He never laments nor desires to have anything. He is equally disposed to every living entity. In that state he attains pure devotional service unto me, as is said in the Bhagavad Gita. This world is miserable for the material infected person. But for the devotee, the entire world is as good as Vaikuntha. For the impersonalist, achieving the Brahman stage, becoming one with the Absolute, is the last word. O'Grady. Is the Absolute external or internal? Prabhupada. There is no external or internal. The Absolute is without duality. O'Grady. Okay, but on an individual level. Prabhupada. We are not absolute. When we are situated on the absolute platform, we are absolute. However, now we are in the relative world. The absolute truth is here also, but our senses are not sufficiently elevated to understand that absolute truth. As long as we are under the control of time, there is no question of becoming absolute. O'Grady. So, absolute means life beyond time? Prabhupada. This is stated in the Bhagavad Gita. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjun. That is absolute. Going back home, back to Godhead. As long as one is in the material world and identifies with this body, he transmigrates from one body to another, to another, to another. That is not absolute. This is clearly stated here. When one goes back to the spiritual world, he attains the absolute position. O'Grady. All right, but this is my question. Is it sufficient for us to sit here, you sitting there, and we as friends sitting with you, engaging in the gentle art of conversation, while across the ocean, Prabhupada, the point you have missed is that although you are sitting in one place and I am sitting in a different place, the difference does not affect our actual existence. We are both human beings. The conception of Irishman, Englishman, Protestant, Catholic, and so on are but different dresses. One has to become free from these designations. When one is thus free, he becomes purified. When you have purified your senses and engaged those purified senses in the service of the master of the senses, Krishna, you have perfected your life. That is non-duality. That is absolute. O'Grady. But the system insists that you think yourself American or Indian or African or whatever. Prabhupada. Yes, materialistic society means duality. O'Grady. But that is unavoidable. How can you avoid material existence? Prabhupada. That is possible in Krishna consciousness. The lotus lives of the water, but never touch. The lotus lives in the water, but never touches the water. O'Grady. I don't think you can explain situations in one area with metaphors from another. How can you argue political problems in terms of vague spiritual concepts? Their nature is completely different. Prabhupada. Sometimes a variety of examples helps us to understand or appreciate the problem better. In the vase, there's a variety of flowers, and that variety helps us better appreciate the idea of flowers. From any point of view, Krishna can resolve all problems. Why just the problems of Irishmen and Englishmen? All problems. That is called unity in diversity. Our students come from different backgrounds, but because they are all in Krishna consciousness, they're unified. O'Grady. Very good. Yes, I accept that. I would like to know, though, that when you say Krishna consciousness, is there any difference between that and Christ consciousness? Prabhupada. No, there is no difference. Christ came to preach the message of God. If you actually become Christ conscious, you become Krishna conscious. O'Grady. And does becoming Krishna conscious or God conscious mean becoming self-conscious? That is conscious of who we really are. Prabhupada. Yes. God consciousness includes self-consciousness, but self-consciousness is not necessarily God consciousness. O'Grady. But it may be? Prabhupada. No. O'Grady. One may achieve consciousness of the God that is within. Srila Prabhupada. That means he is God conscious. You are now in the sunlight, and consciousness of the sun includes your ability to see yourself. In the darkness, you cannot see yourself. At night, you can't even see your own hands or legs. But if you come before the sun, you see the sun and yourself also. Without sunlight, without God consciousness, self-consciousness is incomplete. However, God consciousness makes self-consciousness very clear. O'Grady. We meet a lot of young people in our teaching profession. We don't try to teach them any kind of didactic salvation. We do try to direct them toward an awareness of what is best and what is most beautiful and what is most spiritually nourishing in the world about them. That is, insofar as the system allows us. Very frequently, the students are not neutral enough to be in a spiritual condition. They're more in an emotional one. What we're faced with often is the basic question of, who am I? Or, what is it all about? Prabhupada. Yes. O'Grady. Or they ask, why am I here? Prabhupada. Yes. Very good. O'Grady. We are asked, why should I be here? Who are you, teacher? And what gives you the right to tell us what to think, or what to listen to, or what to be? Why should I read Shakespeare? Why should I listen to Mozart? I prefer Bob Dylan. These kinds of questions seem to emanate from a very disillusioned state of mind and insecurity and uncertainty and a lack of credibility in the total structure of things as they are. Frequently, we have to answer these questions in a cataclysmic sort of way. Rather than presenting direct answers, we must answer indirectly, taking account of the conditioning that prompted students to ask these questions in the first place. Do you think that we should try to teach them more directly? Prabhupada. You were talking about the problem of, O'Grady, modern education. Prabhupada. Yes. So many questions are there, but they are not answered by modern education. Why have I come here? What is the purpose? These questions should be answered perfectly. To find answers to all these questions, one must approach a bona fide spiritual master. O'Grady. What if you have none? What if we are told that Mr. Nixon is the bona fide spiritual master? What do we do? Prabhupada. No. There is a standard for bona fide spiritual masters. You have only heard one line of the verse. Who is the spiritual master? That is the next line. A spiritual master is he who has taken the message from another qualified spiritual master. This is just like a medicine man who has taken the knowledge of medical science from another medical man. Similarly, the bona fide spiritual master must come in a line of successive spiritual masters. The original spiritual master is God. O'Grady. Yes, granted. Prabhupada. One who has heard from God explains the same message to his disciples. If the disciple doesn't change the message, he is a bona fide spiritual master. That is our process. We take lessons by hearing from Krishna, God, and from him understand who is perfect, or we hear from his representative, who does not contradict Krishna, and who has realized his message. It is not that we speak one thing and do all nonsense. One who does so is not a spiritual master. O'Grady. Now there's my poor old father, living west of Ireland, a simple old man, 78 years now, your generation. He has gotten to the point of his age where he says, they tell me, the priests, they tell me ultimately that it's God who knows, but I want to know who told God. Then he comes to me and says, you went to school, you read books, tell me, who told God? So I have no answer. That is the difference between 78 and 39 years old. Prabhupada. No, it is not a difference of age. The difference is knowledge. In the Brahma Sutra, the question is raised, who is God? First of all, there's the question. O'Grady. Who taught God? Prabhupada. No. First of all, there's the question, who is God? Then we shall ask who taught God. Unless you know who God is, how can you raise the question of who instructed God? If you don't know God, the question does not arise, who instructed God? Is this not so? O'Grady. Yes. Prabhupada. Who God is explained in the Brahma Sutra. God is he from whom everything emanates. That is God, the supreme being from whom everything emanates. Now, what is the nature of that supreme being? Is he a dead stone or a living entity? That is also explained. The supreme being is fully cognizant of everything, directly and indirectly. Unless he is fully cognizant of everything, he cannot be God. Then the question that you raised comes, who taught God? And that is also answered. He is fully independent. He does not need to take lessons from anyone. That is God. If one needs to take lessons from others, he is not God. Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita. He did not have to learn it from anyone. I had to learn it from my spiritual master, but Krishna did not have to learn it from anyone. One who does not need to take lessons from others is God. O'Grady. Where does human love come in? Prabhupada. Everything is coming from God. Being part and parcel of God, we manifest partial love because the original love is there in him. Nothing can exist if it is not in God. Therefore, love is there in God. O'Grady. And manifestations of love are manifestations of God? Prabhupada. Unless the loving propensity is there in God, how can we manifest it? A son born of a particular father has the symptoms of the father, because the loving propensity is in God. We have that same propensity. O'Grady. Maybe love is generated in you by the need. Prabhupada. No. There is no question of maybe. We are defining God in absolute terms. God is he from whom everything has emanated. The fighting propensity is also there in God, but his fighting and his loving are absolute. In the material world, we experience that fighting is just the opposite of loving. But in God, the fighting propensity and the loving propensity are one and the same. That is the meaning of absolute. We learn from the Vedic scriptures that when the so-called enemies of God are killed by God, they attain liberation. Oh, Grady, is it possible to arrive at this understanding of God alone? Prabhupada, no. Therefore, we have cited the verse, "It is not possible alone." In Sanskrit grammar, this is called the Vidihilin form of a verb, and this form is used when there is no choice. The word means that one must approach a guru. That is the Vedic version. Therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita, you will find that Arjuna was talking to Krishna. But when he saw that things were not being resolved, he surrendered himself to Krishna and accepted Krishna as his guru. Now, when Arjuna says, "Now I am confused about my duty and have lost all composure because of weakness. In this condition, I am asking you to tell me clearly what is best for me. Now I am your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me." So here we can see that Arjuna is confused about his duty. Oh, Grady, is this duty to the self, to others, or to the state? Prabhupada, a soldier's duty is to fight with the enemy. Arjuna was a soldier, and Krishna advised him, "The opposite party is your enemy, and you are a soldier. Why are you trying to be nonviolent? This is not good." Then Arjuna said, "Actually, I am confused. In this confusion, I cannot make the right decision. I therefore accept you as my spiritual master. Please give me the proper lesson." In a chaotic condition, in a confused state of life, one should approach another who is in full knowledge of the matter. You go to a lawyer to solve legal problems. You go to a physician to solve medical problems. Everyone in the material world is confused about spiritual identity. It is therefore our duty to approach a bona fide spiritual master who can give us real knowledge. Oh, Grady, I am very confused. Prabhupada, so you must approach a spiritual master. Oh, Grady, and he makes a decision on how to help me stop this confusion? Prabhupada, yes. The spiritual master is one who solves all confusion. If the spiritual master cannot save his disciple from confusion, he is not a spiritual master. That is the test. This whole confused world is just like a blazing forest fire. In a forest fire, all the animals are confused. They do not know where to go to save their lives. In the blazing fire of the material world, everyone is confused. How can that blazing forest fire be extinguished? It is not possible to utilize your man-made fire brigade, nor is it possible to simply pour buckets of water. The solution comes when the rain from the clouds falls on the forest fire. Only then can the fire be extinguished. That ability is not in your hands, but it is the mercy of God. So, human society is in a confused state, and it cannot find a solution. The spiritual master is one who has received the mercy of God, and he can deliver the solution to the confused man. One who has received the mercy of God can become a spiritual master and deliver that mercy to others. Oh, Grady, the problem is to find this spiritual master. Prabhupada, that is not the problem. The problem is whether you are sincere. You have problems, but God is within your heart. God is not far away. If you are sincere, God sends you a spiritual master. Therefore, God is also called Chaitya Guru, the spiritual master within the heart. God helps from within and from without. Everything is thus described in the Bhagavad Gita. This material body is like a machine, but within the heart is the soul, and with the soul is the super soul, Krishna, who gives directions. The Lord says, you wanted to do this? Now here's the chance. Go and do it. If you are sincere, you say, now God, I want you. Then he will give you directions. Yes. Now you come and get me like this. This is his kindness. However, if we want something else, that is all right. We can have it. God is very kind. When I want something, he is in my heart, directing me and telling me how to have it. So why should he not give directions on how to have a spiritual master? First of all, we must again be eager to revive our God consciousness. Then God will give us a spiritual master. Oh, Grady. Thank you very much, Prabhupada. Thank you very much. My request to you is this. You are a poet. Just describe God. You are expert in describing, and therefore I ask you to kindly describe God in your occupation. Then your life will be successful. And if one hears you, his life will also be successful. That is the injunction. There are many leaders in societies who are poets, scientists, religionists, philosophers, politicians, and so on. Those who are so expert are given this injunction. Your duty is to perfect your occupation by describing the glories of the Supreme Being. Wow. Oh, Grady. My experience is that for some extraordinary reason, one is chosen to do a particular thing. Prabhupada. That reason is given here. The infallible choice is this. Let them describe the glories of the Lord. Oh, Grady. But you were saying that the spiritual master is chosen. The spiritual master, the poet, the priest, is chosen by God. This person is chosen to write poems or paint pictures or make music. Prabhupada. So, when you compose music about God. That is your perfection. Oh, Grady. When one works for God in his line, then his line becomes his perfection. Prabhupada. Yes. Oh, Grady. Thank you very much.